And liftoff. We're going again. This time, I, Ian, will ask he, Steve, a question about the story.
Yep.
So, in the world of Downbelow and Nuevo Paradiso, if you are running a game and you need to come up with an NPC at the drop of a hat because the players go to talk to somebody who you hadn't planned for, how do you make that person interesting?
Okay, this is actually, to me, a three-step process, and it's a three-simple-step process. Everything else flows from there. The three steps are job, emotions, and quirks. And it's really honestly in that order. The first question is job. What does this person do? This can be either the job that they are doing that necessitates the PC contact, or the job that they do that is not the job that necessitates the contact, but is their main source of income.
In an extremely memorable example, you had someone whose job was dock inspector, whose emotion was...
I haven't gotten to emotion yet.
I don't remember what the emotion was, but I know that the quirk was a funny accent.
And we'll get there in a second. The second is emotion. Specifically, not how am I feeling right now, but how do I feel about my job. And the third is, again, quirk. What makes this person more memorable than anyone else who is in this job with that emotion? What makes this office drone more memorable than any other office drone who hates his job, as almost all of them do on some level? To use the specific example, yes, we have one particularly memorable character in the 7th Sea game. If you haven't played it, by the way, 7th Sea is an excellent game about pirates or non-pirates, which may or may not be on a ship, but are definitely in the swashbuckling world. This person is a free city port inspector. His job is to sign in ships after collecting their docking tax. His emotion about the job was he doesn't like the job. He does like the opportunities for graft that come along with the job. And his memorable quirk on the fly was this man had jowls that would make Winston Churchill's bulldog jealous. And so everything he did came through this, much like a cross between a cartoon Churchill and a cartoon Nixon.
And so he had a semi-German accent with a lisp, and it was extremely memorable because he got talking about city taxes,
and
which came out with the lisp.
So we'll leave that to your imagination. The most important thing about an NPC, really, is whether the players enjoy interacting with them. If the players don't enjoy interacting with them, then you might as well gloss over them. Meaningless contact A who happens to have a name that the players don't enjoy going back to, that's not a problem. That's just a function of the story. And then the players talked to the barman gave them some information, and they're off.
We should differentiate here, though. This doesn't mean that they shouldn't hate the NPC. This means that they should enjoy interacting with the NPC,
right,
as opposed to being bored or actively wanting to do something else.
The players should enjoy interacting with the NPC. The characters are free to feel however they like about that time. For instance, in the memorable example, most of the characters really were wondering why this one character kept poking him. The players were rolling on the floor with laughter the whole time. In at least one other memorable example, the players absolutely hated an NPC, but also absolutely loved interacting with that same NPC, because every time they interacted with Alessandro and Renaud, bad things would happen.
In another game, more close to this genre, a Shadowrun game, there was a memorable NPC who started off as throwaway and became recurring after she got such a huge rise out of all of the players.
But
she was an extremely memorable receptionist who was extremely bad at her job.
So what we're going to do is we're going to run this through here. The primary job was I'm a receptionist. Secondary job was I give the player characters information by connecting them to my boss. How do I feel about this job? I love this job. I'm the best at this job. Memorable quirk, I'm the worst at this job. That's it.
Part of memorable quirk number 2, which revealed itself after she became a recurring character, justification for her being a recurring character, her being bad at her job was part of her boss's security through obscurity.
Yep. And there you have it. The basics of how to design a memorable NPC in 3 simple steps. It does not start with a funny voice and an accent. It actually starts with what do I do, how do I feel about doing it, and then what sets me apart.
Which sometimes is a funny voice or a funny accent.
As a parting note, this is to all you GMs out there. This is an interactive medium, not so much a visual one. If you're going to pick a funny quirk, please make it a behavioral or a verbal quirk other than a described quirk. Tattoos are a dime a dozen, but funny accents, when they stick, really, really stick.
But if you're going to pick a descriptive one, make sure you do it every time.
Yep.
Because tall, dark, and no longer handsome does make a good turn of phrase. But we don't have time for more turns of phrase right now. We're going to give you another turn of phrase tomorrow.